people who are on my team and supporting me as well. So welcome, Ellen and Audra. During the course of today's call, you can enter your questions into the chat box, and when we get the and at the end of the call, of course, we'll have an open questions and answer period so that we can just address those questions as we like. And I have 12:02, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start the recording and start the call. And if Ellen and or Audra, if you would do the same thing, that would be cool. Hello, this is Paul Hoyt. Welcome to our office hours presentation on Monday, November 11th, 2013. It is Veterans Day here, so first of all, I want to give a shout out to all of our veterans and say how much your service is appreciated and respected. And thank you for joining the call, and of course, thank you for your service on behalf of a grateful nation. To this office hours presentation is an informal, relaxed, and free mentoring program that I do every Monday at noon Pacific time. And then we put the recording up and is available online along with many of the previous week's recordings for those of you who don't have the opportunity to attend it live. And the deal is that I'd like to pick a time that everybody could come and that was convenient for all people, but that you never can really do that. One of the thoughts I'm having, by the way, is to do an encore presentation, which is to do this same office hour presentation later on in today, or later on Mondays rather, or some other time during the week. So if you would like for me to do that at a time that's more convenient to you, whether you're attending live or whether you're listening to this recording, just somehow reach out and let me know that. You can do that by joining my tribe at Skype, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit, or just sending me an email or give me a phone call, and we'll have contact information at the end of today's presentation as well. And all of these recordings, by the way, will be held in a members area that we're going to start in the next few months. So we're going to start a membership program on the Paul Hoyt website as part of our tribe, where there's lots of templates and lots of information that you'll be able to access for a very small monthly fee. But in the meantime, all of this information is free. So our agenda for all of these calls is that we're going to have an in-depth discussion of a particular business success principle, some closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session, and then open questions and answers. And with the open Q&A, we like to take the questions that are related to today's topic first, and then we just open it up to any questions about business or life in general, or about anything you want to ask questions for the balance of the hour. But today's presentation is on preparation paralysis, tips for getting unstuck and back into action. You know me, I always talk about the key performance areas of business. There are 7 different functional areas of business, the most important one being leadership. Then we have sales and delivery and marketing, product development, operations, administration, and financial management are kind of the support functions of business. And this presentation is square in the area of leadership, because as the leader of your company, it's your responsibility to make sure that stuff gets done. And if you find that you're stuck about something, then it's your responsibility as the leader of the business to do everything that you can to become unstuck about that and to move forward. So if you find yourself unstuck, then take 100% responsibility, and hopefully the many topics that I'm going to talk about today will allow you to go a long ways towards being unstuck and back into action. As it turns out that there are 2 different definitions for the word preparation paralysis. One of them is being stuck because you just can't get started with the preparation. In other words, you're paralyzed before the preparation really begins, or the planning really begins, or the gathering of resources really begins, whatever your steps are in the preparation. And the second definition is the one that's more common, at least to me, and that's being stuck because you just can't stop preparing, editing, and rehearsing, that you just don't feel like the quality's there, or that you're ready to go to market or get out on stage or sing that song or whatever. So in the course of the presentation today, we're going to try to talk about both those different phases of being stuck and having preparation paralysis. And we'll talk about a lot of other stucks too as we go along. So first of all, preparation is not a bad thing. You know, I'm an analyst and a programmer and a sequencing expert, and I think being prepared before you go out and do something is a very good thing. My kids were in the Boy Scouts, and I love their motto of being prepared. You know, and every time before we went out on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts, I think it was the Wednesday or the Tuesday meeting before the weekend camping session, you had to bring in all of your supplies, your entire backpack, and all of the materials that you were going to take with you, and lay them out in front of the scoutmaster so that they would know that you were prepared. So preparation is a very, very good thing. I think it's a natural step, the natural next step to creating a plan. I think it improves performance. I think it increases confidence, and I'm a big fan of that. And some of you know that I have a little bit of a history on stage. I've done opera and musicals and lots of theater work in my earlier years especially. And rehearsal was critical. We rehearsed together so that the show could come together so that we could do a quality job for our audiences. But as you know, too little preparation or too much preparation is counterproductive. And in the case of the first definition of preparation paralysis, that's too little preparation because you're afraid of getting into action or afraid of making the plans and starting the preparation. And the second one is too much preparation because you're afraid of actually taking those steps and launching something into the marketplace. But getting unstuck is a perfect example of the relationship between personal growth and business growth. And as you get to know me, you know that I'm passionate about two different things, passionate about helping people get unstuck with their businesses to accelerate their growth, improve their probability of success. And I'm also passionate about encouraging people to do everything they can to learn life lessons and to focus on personal growth. And this is right in the middle of those two things. Preparation paralysis is about how fears get in the way of us doing whatever we need to do in order to move forward in business. And I've got a little bit of a confession to make here. You know, the truth is that I used to be a very frightened person. Some people are born very calm and very grounded, and some people are born sensitive and a little bit skittish. And I have to confess that I was born a Chihuahua. I was born one of those yipping little things that was frightened all the time and nervous all the time, and I was angry and sarcastic and bitter all the time. So believe me, I've got an intimate relationship with my deepest fears. But the good news is that I've healed tremendously over the years, and you can too. That you can face your fears and overcome your fears, and that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. It's because paralysis is a response to fear. Now I know, especially if you're a guy between the ages of 14 and 30, that you may have this attitude that says, "Who, me, afraid? No freaking way. You know, I'm not afraid to do anything. Just, you know, I'm a tough kid," or "I'm a tough guy." But the bottom line is, if you're stuck for a reason, and the reason you're stuck is because of your fear. There are three classic responses to fearfulness. One of them is fight, the other one is flight, and the third one is freeze. And paralysis means that you're freezing. Later on in the presentation, we're going to talk about the fourth response to fear, and that is flipping the fear, turning that fear into a positive. But that's later on in the presentation. Let's first talk a little bit about the nature of fear. Now, fear is not a bad thing. Fear is there to protect us. Fear, if it's reasonable, it can prevent us from doing things that hurt us both short-term and long-term. And fears are not the same. There are a lot of different levels of fear. I learned a lot about fear in listening to a good friend of mine, Rhonda Britton, who has a company called the Fearless Living Institute. And if after today's presentation or after taking on some of the steps that I'm going to recommend in today's presentation, you find yourself really still stuck, then you may want to look up Rhonda and the Fearless Living Institute, because she is a consummate professional in helping people face and address their fears. And I don't want you to stay stuck. So if I can't help you, then there's a lot of people that can. Anyway, Rhonda talks about fears having different levels of being stretches. Some fears are just a little bit of a stretch. In other words, we just get a little bit nervous about it, but it's really not something that really shuts us down. Some fears are like a big risk. We perceive a big risk in doing something, and we really take pause on that one. And some fears are like dying. It's like, no way, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather die than do that. And we're going to talk about the analogy of today about public speaking, because public speaking is a very common fear out there. And maybe it is that you're preparing to do a speech in some way. or you're preparing to give a capital presentation, for example, and maybe that's the nature of your preparation paralysis, is that it does center around getting out in public in some way and stepping out on stage in some way. For some of us, that's just a little bit of a stretch, and for some of us, it's a risk, and for some of it's a die. What I also know about the nature of fear is that those fears add up, that if you have multiple stretches together, that can equal a real risk. Here's a little example of that. Let's say that you're just really, really afraid of giving a speech and stepping out on stage. And I say to you, well, how about this? How about if you just give the speech to me? Because that might be a stretch for you. But can you do that? You know that I'm a nice person and I'm not going to do anything but support you and encourage you. Would that be a little bit of a stretch for you? And it might be. And then if I say, well, and we'd like to record that as well, maybe that's another little stretch, and you're going, uh-oh, that fear is mounting up just a little bit. And then I say, and let's start right now. Let's just do it right now. Let's just start the recording and go for it. Well, all of a sudden, we've taken 3 stretches and added them together, and now you're feeling a risk. Now you're feeling like, uh-oh, I could have done it with just a little bit, but when you said you were going to, I could have just talked to you, but then you said you were going to record it, and now you're saying I got to start right away, and oh crap, I don't want to do that at all. So multiple stretches can add up to being a risk, and likewise, multiple risks can add up to being a die. And this is one of the things that I see a lot in business. If you've had the opportunity to listen to my Business Survival Boot Camp, I introduced the concept of the business complexity profile there, and introduced the idea that one of the things that I see that shut a lot of businesses down is that they're over their heads in a lot of different areas. They're really good at what it is that they want to do, but they don't know anything about marketing, and they don't know anything about sales, and they may not have good leadership experience, and they don't have financial management experience, and they don't know how to manage their cash, and they're not good at managing credit policies, and all of a sudden they have challenge after challenge after challenge, and they perceive risk after risk after risk, and those things add up until they get to a point to where they're saying, I don't want to do it, that this is just really too terrifying for me. And like stretch plus stretch plus stretch equals risk, and like risk plus risk plus risk equals die, then die plus die plus die equals dead. And I've seen a lot of people shut down when their fears add up way too much. So we're going to give you some steps to address the fears in your business life. And in fact, there are 8 of them we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about reducing the immediate fear, studying your fear, understanding your true risk, focusing on your reward, making a decision, reducing the risk, increasing your courage, and the last one is flipping your fear. So let's go through these one by one. And by the way, there is a Fear Buster worksheet that is going to be available on the Office Hours website. I'll give you the link to when we finish the presentation here today, so that you'll have an ability to work through these steps for yourself anytime that you want. You can just download those worksheets and go through those steps, and hopefully that will really help you make good progress in becoming unstuck. So step number 1 is to reduce the immediate fear. Fear can be a really bad thing. It's bad for it increases your stress, and it really can be bad on your health. So we want you to if you're stuck right now and you're experiencing a lot of fear, just breathe. Just vent in some way. Venting is something that Rhonda Britton taught me as well. Venting is a way to just express yourself. You're not asking somebody else to fix it. You're not asking for advice. You just need to get it off your chest in some way. Just talk to yourself or talk to a friend and say, this really bugs me, this scares the crap out of me, can help you face that fear and help you express the fear and get it out of your body. Another way that I've found of really reducing fear is to exercise. Just go do something physically active. Dance, do yoga, get on a bike, go for a jog, do something to get involved with physical activity. Go to the gym, do a little workout. That can help reduce the fear a tremendous amount by using the power that you have to shape your emotions and shape your mindset through using your physical body. In other words, generally we want you to do things that help make you feel more powerful and get you to a calmer place where you can deal with the fear at hand, because it doesn't do any good to deal with your fear from a place of being extremely fearful. One of the things that I like to do whenever I'm in a personal coaching meeting with a client is make sure that their mindset is in the right place. make sure that they're ready to make plans and decisions about moving forward, because when you're in the pit of darkness and when you're in a place of extreme fear, that is not the time to be planning and moving forward, because generally speaking, the vibration with which you make that plan and make that decision is not going to be consistent with a positive outcome. And also remember that there are 1,000 ways to shift your energy. There's lots of things that you can do, and I've just made a few suggestions about breathing and venting and exercising. There are lots of other things that you can do, listening to music, changing your environment in some way, lots and lots of things. And we talk about this extensively in our previous office hours presentation, which was on increasing productivity, with one that we did just last week. So if you want to hear a lot more ideas about ways to shift your energy, you can re-listen to that recording or look at the slides that were in there too. Step number 2 is to study your fears. Name your fears. What are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of screwing up? Are you afraid of being embarrassed? Are you afraid of wasting your precious time and resources? Are you afraid of failing in some way? Are you afraid of somebody saying no to you and having rejection? Are you afraid of making a bad impression on somebody? Are you afraid of looking like a fool? Are you afraid of blowing the only chance you will get? Oftentimes, whenever I find myself in a little bit of fear, just naming the fear and really getting to understand that at a much deeper level can help me understand why that fear is there in the first place and can help alleviate those fears. So after you've reduced the immediate fear and your courage is back up just a little bit, and you feel a little bit stronger and more powerful, then I invite you to examine that fear and name it so that you can own it, so that you can embrace it, so that you can deal with it. And next, step number 3, after you've done that, is ask yourself the question, what's the worst that could happen? Understand the true risk that is causing you to be frozen in the moment. What's the worst that could happen? Ask yourself what the probability of a disastrous outcome or the probability of an unfavorable outcome is, and then ask yourself the very important question, can you live with that risk? Because if the answer is no, I can't live with that risk, the risk is too great, then you may not want to move on at all. You may want to make a decision just to stop. We'll cover that in a second. After you've done that, step number 4 on my Fear Buster process is to focus in on the reward. Ask yourself, what is the best that could happen? What is the probability of an incredible outcome? What is the probability of a really good outcome? And are you excited about that reward? Can you get reconnected with your passion? Can you get reconnected with your vision and focus on that reward and ramp up your strength a little bit and go forward? And after you've done that, after you've analyzed the risk, and after you've focused again on the reward, ask yourself that question. Are you ready to take that next step? Does the risk so far outweigh the reward that it just doesn't make any sense to go any further, or is there sufficient potential reward to take additional action? And if there's a sufficient potential reward to take additional action and your courage is up just a little bit, then we'll go on to step 6 and step 7. Step number 6 is reducing the risk. There are things that you can do to reduce the risk, and by definition, reducing the risk reduces your fear and can inspire you to move into action. Here's some of them. You can go after a smaller dream. There's nobody out there, there's nobody that I know that says that you have to build a $20 million business, that you have to build a $100 million business. I think it's very smart to go after financial stability as quickly as possible, but you can go after a smaller dream and thereby making it a winnable game worth playing. Not everybody has the same capability. Not everybody has the same experience. Not everybody has the same talent. Not everybody has the same passion and work ethic. It's really important for you to right-size your dream. And sometimes when you right-size your dream, you can significantly reduce the risk and make it much easier for you to step into action. Another thing you can do is reduce your risk is just take it one step at a time. Let's go back to the speaking analogy just a little bit. If you're afraid of giving a speech in front of a large audience, let's just start with a small audience. Let's just start with an audience of 1 or 2 or 3. Let's just test ourselves in front of a friendly audience before we get into people who don't know us. We can take it just one step out at a time on our way to doing the thing which scares us the most. And when we do that one step at a time, we can make pretty massive progress. Turn to your advisors and your mentors. Ask them if you're ready. Ask them if they'll support you in some way. Ask them if they'll listen to your speech or listen to your plans and see whether or not they think that you're prepared. And ask them for their advice and counsel, which can help you reduce your risk as well. And then one of my favorites is rehearse and practice. You know, the old adage is that if you practice anything 50 times, it becomes your own. It becomes sunk into your subconscious mind, and you can own that message with your heart and your soul. So I'm a big fan of rehearsal and practice, because every time that you do that, you become a little more comfortable with it, and you're reducing the risk of screwing up through repetition. Step number 7 is then increase your courage. Once that you've reduced the risk a little bit, think about ways in which you can increase your courage. You can connect with your passion. You can remember why it is that you're doing what you want to do. And just like sometimes having a smaller dream is what is going to be right for you because it reduces your risk, sometimes having a bigger dream is the right thing to do as well, because you've got a dream worth fighting for, a dream worth dying for. And focus in on that vision can really help you ramp up your courage. And then you can talk to your cheerleaders, not just your advisors and mentors, but your cheerleaders, those people who really see your greatness and see your potential, and get them to remind you of how strong and capable you are so that you can ramp up your courage. Get inspired in whatever way that you can. Listen to music, listen to inspirational presentations like this one. Just do whatever you can to get inspired to tap into your greatness and your potential, and then you can do what one of my favorite people says, Audra, who's on this call, just suck it up, Cupcake, and do it anyway. Just go ahead and do that, because like we talked about in our last call, there are some things out there that you just are never going to be able to think yourself through. I don't think you can think your way into being a good public speaker. You have to practice your way into being a good public speaker. You have to step out in courage even though it frightens you. Suck it up and just do it. Just face your fear and get out there and do it. And step 8 of our process is one of my very favorite things, and that's flip the fear. After you've named the fear, addressed the fear, and decided that you're going to deal with the fear, you can actually flip that using the power of neurolinguistic programming, easy for me to say, and hypnosis. You can change your response to that stimulus to be from something that frightens you into something that turns you into being very courageous, excited, or even joyful. That's right. With the power of NLP and with the power of hypnosis, you can take that otherwise extremely fear-inducing event and turn that into something that just flat gets you excited and happy about facing your fears and flipping that fears into a joyful, very, very excited, enthusiastic thing for you to address. So those are the 8 steps. Reduce the immediate fear so that you get yourself in a better place to address it. Study the fear so that you understand it. Examine the true risk. Focus in on the reward. Make a decision of whether you want to go forward. Reduce your risks in some way. Increase your courage in some way. And then if you can, flip that fear so that you can get unstuck and back into action. And always remember that there's 1,000 ways. There's 1,000 ways to shift your energy, to be more productive, to be more peaceful, to be more joyful, and to be more, whatever you want to do it. There's always 1,000 ways to move forward. Practice and you will get better. Practice and you can become great. That's our presentation for today, and here's your homework. Download the Fear Buster worksheet from Paul Hoyt / I left out a .com there. I apologize. It should be www.paulhoyt.com/tribe/office-hours, which is the normal place that you can go to get the recordings for these sessions. And here in the next 24 or 48 hours, we'll have backup, usually by the close of business on Tuesday. We'll have up this presentation, the recording of the presentation along with the slides and the Fear Buster worksheet. And go through that step-by-step process that's detailed in this presentation and in the Word document the next time that you are stuck. And of course, we invite you to listen to any other recordings if you've missed some of them out there. And in just a second, we're going to have open questions and answers and invite you to make comments and or ask questions on the topic of the day and then any other issues that you might have. But first, I just want to extend again the invitation to join my tribe on Skype. Just Skype me at Paul Hoyt and say that you'd like to make a connection and join the tribe, and we'll do that. We talk frequently during the week with the tribe members. I ask them questions, they ask me questions, and it's a way of starting to get into my inner circle of communications, and I really appreciate everybody that's already joined that tribe. Thank you very much. And I encourage you to study. Watch the Business Survival Boot Camp, which most of you got at an extremely reduced price, whatever you signed up for this webinar, to learn the key survival strategies and learn about the business complexity profile and a lot more. And of course, I encourage you to purchase and study the Beyond Business Survival program. That's my critical small business owner training program, what you really need to know when you're the CEO. I know it will help you make great decisions, and it will help you avoid mistakes that will slow you down or shut you down. I'm convinced that that program will save you $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 or more. The reason I wrote this program is because I've seen hundreds of business owners make lots of mistakes. So I turned those mistakes into business success principles and created the Beyond Business Survival program so that you could learn from the mistakes of other people and you wouldn't have to make those mistakes yourself. Because I know that if you make too many mistakes as a business owner, you know, you're not going to make it, and I hate to see that when that happens. I've also provided a lot of services. I'm available for group coaching, private mentoring, strategic plans, business plans, and financial models. And also, if you know somebody that's got a teleseminar or webinar series or a radio show, I'm available for radio interviews, webinars, teleseminars, and I've got a very generous affiliate program in place too. Your kind words are greatly appreciated. If you appreciate this office hours presentation or any of the other material that I'm providing, give me a shout out. I want to gather those testimonials. You can reach me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google+, and you can send an email to me at paul@paulhoyt.com. Next Monday, the subject of our office hours presentation will be on keeping pace with technology or going the way of dinosaurs. And I want to hear what your suggestions are. This one came from one of our attendees last week. Let me know what topics that you would like for me to address by going to paulssurvey.com. That's www.paulssurvey.com. And in the meantime, watch the Business Survival Boot Camp and do your homework, of course. So now let's go into the open questions and answers. Comments or questions on the topic of the day and any other issues. And I'm going to leave my contact information and a link to the survey up there as well for the duration of the call. If you need to bail out, thank you so much for attending or listening to the recording. But otherwise, I am eager to hear your questions and comments and do whatever I can to support you. And Ellen and Ann, do you have any questions that have come up during the course of our presentation today?
Yes, I do. All right. So what do you do to reduce your fears, Paul?
Well, fortunately these days I've been facing my fears for a long, long time. So I don't have near the fear that I had when I was a younger man. My baseline anxiety has gone down a tremendous amount. So now my fears kind of appear as little buzzes or temptations to be judgmental or temptations to be a little bit angry. And whenever I do that, my favorite thing these days is to sing little songs to myself. I've written a few spiritual lullabies, as I call them. There's little songs that just remind me of how really nice it is whenever I'm at my best, whenever I'm reconnected with my own higher self, if you will. So I have a tendency to say little poems to myself or sing little songs to myself, and that reminds me of the person that I can be when I'm at my best, and when I'm at my best, I don't have those fears, and they just kind of go away. So that's what I do. I hope you might try that, and if you don't have little songs that you've written for yourself, then I'm happy to share some of mine, or you can certainly find a lot of great music out there that can shift your energy very quickly. Thank you for that question. Any other questions, Ellen?
Yes, so another question was, one of the under-evaluated risks, give me 1 second. I'm trying to make sure I can read this. Okay. All right, so the next question, Have you ever been stuck, and how did you get unstuck?
You know, I think the biggest way for me to get unstuck is through rehearsal and practice. And I think that comes from my theater background. I started being on stage when I was like in first grade or second grade. As it turns out, a long, long time ago, my teachers figured out that I was reasonably precocious and I got things done a lot quicker than everybody else did. And then I was a troublemaker, of course, because I was bored and excited and full of energy. So one of them figured out that if they just gave me a little play to memorize and create all of the props, that it would keep me busy. So whenever I finished with my math homework or my whatever homework I had, I would just start working on memorizing plays, and then every once in a while, once or twice a year, I had the opportunity to get up in front of people and just give a play to my classroom. And so as a consequence, I learned the value of rehearsal and I learned the value of practice. So the biggest thing that I do to get unstuck is to rehearse and to practice. And frankly, sometimes I have a tendency to do a little bit too much rehearsal and practice. I've certainly had preparation paralysis in my life. But I get to a point to where I just know that I'm ready. You just know. I've nailed this song 3 or 4 times in a row. I don't forget the words. I can hit every note. And I'm just ready to go out and step out on stage and make it happen. So that's what I do, is rehearsal and practice is my favorite way of getting unstuck. Next question.
All right, Paul, we have another question. It's one of the under-evaluated risks is how much time is available to be invested. We always think of dollar investments, but what about scarcity of investable hours? I've seen businesses in peril because the money was there, but the time was not. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I know about me, and which I believe is true of a lot of business owners out there, and a lot, I mean like 80%, is that they're very creative people. One of the reasons we want to break out of the corporate America and working for somebody else is because we want to do our own thing. We want to be creative. We got so many ideas within us that we want to run things our way. And consequently, we have a lot of projects. Right now, I've got 6 or 7 projects. I've got enough projects lined up to release a new information product or a new book or a new something, every 90 days for the next 2 or 3 years. But I don't have time to do all that stuff. I need to survey the marketplace and find out what the market really wants for me to produce and focus my time and attention on that. That's one of the truisms of business. And by the way, this is true whether you're just starting a business or whether you've been in business for a long time. And being in business for a long time oftentimes means that you've got even less time and less money to focus on large projects and doing that next big project out there. I know a lot of people that have seasonality in business, especially construction people, for example. Some of my favorite clients have been blue-collar construction people. I really love to work with those guys. I really love to work with people who work with their hands as much as I love to work with people who work with their fingertips or with their minds. And sometimes during their busy seasons, which can be from like April through November, is they don't have time to focus on other projects. They've just got a few hours a week to focus on things. So one of the things that's really important when it comes to focusing on those projects is to do a decision matrix and really understand which ones of those projects are going to contribute both to your short-term and your long-term goals as much as possible, and to choose those 1 or 2 things that you can focus on right now in addition to all of your other responsibilities and get the job done. So yes, absolutely. We may have $1 million, but we've only got 24 hours in a day, so we can only do so much. Thank you, Ellen. And the next question.
Okay, and the next question's more of a comment. Draw the line between fear and procrastination. Not much scares me, but I still find lots of excuses to put things off. Maybe that will be a topic for you to address as one of your topics.
It could be, but I actually think I got a quick thing I'd like to say about that. I think procrastination is a little bit of fear. It's a little tiny fear. It's not quite the same as preparation paralysis, but the reason we hesitate to do something at all is because in some way we feel like it's not going to serve us. We either fear that we're wasting our time, or we fear that we won't be able to do a good job, or we fear that, you know, it's going to take longer and cost more money than we thought that it was going to. I mean, to me, and this is the way that I deal with life and deal with the challenges that come up in my life, is every challenge that we have is in some way related to fearfulness. And it's related to fighting or fleeing or freezing in some way as a response to fear. So I would say that procrastination is a small response, or I'd say it was a response to a small amount of fear. And you can go through the same fear-busting process about that and ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Why don't you want to get started? Are you afraid of being tired? Are you afraid of screwing up? Are you afraid of, you know, whatever you're afraid of, just name it and own it, so then you can deal with it and get on the other side of it. Next question.
All right. The next question is, do you use NLP or hypnosis with your clients?
You know, thank you for that question. And the answer is no, I really don't. I've studied NLP, and I've got some friends that are experts in NLP and experts in hypnosis as well. But that's not a part of my professional practice. I'm more of a talking coach than I am a coach that helps people out in the ways of NLP and hypnosis. But I do use it quite a bit myself. And by the way, emotional freedom technique or tapping is something that I use whenever I find myself getting a little bit stuck and I want to get on the other side of that. And as I said earlier, you know, I feel very blessed to have lived long enough and to have worked on myself long enough in order to live life in the way that I live life, which is with a very low baseline anxiety, and I seldom get stuck, and I don't spend a lot of time in the pit of darkness at all. So I don't really need those advanced techniques like NLP and hypnosis a lot in my life today. They would have been extremely valuable 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 40 years ago, you know, when I really began working on myself. So I think they can be extremely valuable when used at the right time, but it's not a part of my professional practice today. Thank you for asking that. Ellen, any more questions or comments?
Okay, we've got one more here. Can you give me an example of how you have flipped your fear?
I think I heard you say, can I give an example of how I have flipped my fear?
Yes, that was the question.
Yes, I can, and I think the classic response, the classic example of that has been with speaking in public. You know, I remember the first time I got on stage at CEO Space, which is an entrepreneurial training conference and forum that I'm a member of and have been for a long, long time, and how really scared I was to get out there on stage. And I decided to flip that fear around, and now I turn that fear into excitement. And that happens whenever I go out to sing in public as well. You know, once I start to feel those little tinges of anxiety, those butterflies in my stomach, I name it, I recognize it, I know it's just me having a little bit of addiction to approval and a little bit of fearfulness of rejection and screwing up, and I flip that right away and turn that into excitement and start thinking of it as if it were a thrill ride, like a roller coaster or something that has no risk whatsoever, that's going to go great. I know it's going to go great. I know I'm going to have a good time, and I flip that fear right around into something that's just incredibly joyful and exciting for me. So you can do that too. Another more grounded practical example might be around having a really tough conversation with somebody. But you can turn that into flipping that to be an opportunity to practice being courageous, to practice your communication skills, to make a big step forward in your business, and just flip that into an opportunity to demonstrate and reconnect with the incredible power that you have inside to deal with tough issues. So that's another good example of how we can flip that fear into a very good positive. And I do that every once in a while too. whenever it's time to have a tough conversation, I flip that into an opportunity to help somebody, to be courageous in some way, to even be loving and kind in some way, and to demonstrate real positive energy in some way too. So that's what I do. Those are the ways that I have flipped fear in my life. Other questions?
No, I don't really have another question. Audrey has a comment that her favorite fear-busting tool is using X-Mind and mind maps.
Excellent. So I would call that the path of analysis and the path of understanding. Those are really great tools for becoming unstuck too. Make a list, analyze it, dig into it, understand it, organize it, turn a mess into a sequence steps of activities there, and that can be very helpful too. One of the many thousands of ways that there are to shift your energy, and again I call that the path of understanding or the path of analysis, that can help you get out of being stuck and back into action because you no longer have the fear of knowing what to do. You've looked at it, you've analyzed it, you've created a plan, and now it's time to go execute the plan. So thank you for that comment, Audrey. I appreciate that. And any other comments and questions today?
That's all that I have, Paul.
Ellen? All right. Well, I'm going to call it good then at 40 minutes into the presentation. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending the presentation today. If you have any other issues that you'd like for me to address, please go to paulssurvey.com. And as always, you are welcome to contact me at paul@paulhoyt.com or send me a call or a text at 415-997-8001. Remember to join my tribe, my private group that's on Skype, and my Skype handle is just Paul Hoyt. You can find that. And until I see you again at the next office hours presentation, this is Paul Hoyt wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Thanks and goodbye.